Hi guys. So what you probably weren't expecting was a pommy, but there you go. Even though I did live in South Africa for a while. But here's the interesting stuff. I grew up just like you guys. I actually really did. I went to school just like your school with uniforms and playing fields and everything. The only difference is we used to get caned, or I used to get caned a lot. And so basically, I can relate to it, right? Same sport, same music. We all agree that Liverpool, the best football team. And when I was 17, my life changed. Now, how old are you guys? You're 17 now, right? So when I was 17, we took a gap year as well. And the funny thing was, when I was 17, I never actually had a name. I was just called the rabbi's son. So we had a support group for people like me. It's like the PK support group for preachers' kids. And they wrote a song about me as well. It's called The Son of a Preacher Man. And I finished school in the UK. Now in the UK, when you finish high school to get to university, you have to do something called an interview, shock horror. You go to university and they ask you questions, and one of them is going to be, what are you doing in your gap year? Now in England, everyone does a gap year, like even William and Harry did one. And people think of these great answers, like, I'm going to work and save AIDS in a hospice in Uganda, an AIDS hospice, I'm going to save it out to Mongolian whale. I walk into University College London and said, well actually, I'm going to go to Israel for a year. So they look at me and they say, we see you have a ritual skull cap. It's the Yidlid over here. Clearly he wasn't an MOT, which is a member of the tribe. And your father's a minister of religion, yes. You've been to Israel numerous times, yes. I went with my youth movement, I grew up in B'nai Kiva, and went to my school and everything. So why is it interesting you're going to Israel for your gap year? So I gave them a 2-word answer that was so good, if I say so myself, I've got a 3C offer. That means University College London really wanted me. And the 2 words I told them was the first 2 words, the first commandment the Jews were given, which is what? The sound of silence. How much does the school cost? The benefits of day school education warms the heart. Right, what's the first mitzvah the first Jews got? The first commandment, let's take a step back. Who were the first Jews?
Abraham.
Thank you. So Abraham and obviously Sarah, because without Sarah there weren't any more Jews. Don't forget the women, right? Abraham and Sarah, what's the first thing God told them to do? Lech lecha, 2 words, right? It wasn't important things like honor your teachers, which is quite an important one, or your parents, or believe in God as you would think. It was 2 words, lech lecha. Those 2 words change the course of my life, and also change the course of Judaism. Why is that the first commandment, lech lecha? It teaches you 2 things. What are the 2 things it teaches you? Those 2 words. A, I don't do monologue, it's dialogue here, guys. You can't avoid eye contact either. Well, what is lech lecha? You go. Why is that the cornerstone of Judaism? You weren't expecting this, were you? Why?
Adventure.
One is you can't be a passive Jew, that's not oxymoron, right? To Jew is to do. Don't just talk the talk, you gotta walk the walk, don't be a hypocrite, right? That's what Gandhi says. You must become the change you want to see, right? And the other thing is the essentiality of Israel for us as Jews. The first commandment was leave your incredible civilized culture, where civilization started. Where were they from? Correct, they were from Ur, right? The height of civilization, and go to this total backwater and know what it means to have a homeland. Because one time in the future, when you're dispersed all over the world, this homeland is what's going to keep you Jewish, right? Lech lecha. I said, I've got to do it myself. Not with my school, not with my family, not with my youth movement. I want to go to Israel for a year. I want to study yeshiva a bit. I want to work in kibbutz a bit. And little did I know, what changed the course of my life was meeting Israeli kids my age. Why? Because when I grew up just like you, and I can relate to it, guys, what's the top thing on your mind when you're year 11 and year 12? It's like, what university are we going to go to? I don't even obsess by it, right? It's like, we're going to university, we're going to go live in the suburbs, I've 2.2 kids and a dog, and everyone's got the whole life worked out, right? So that's what I thought as well. I got to university, I've taken a gap year in Israel. How many of you guys think you take a gap year afterwards? Take a year in Israel. If your hands aren't up, you're stupid, because that's the best time to do it. It's a foundation for the rest of your life. You're already in university, you don't have a mortgage, or kids hopefully by then, and you want to take a year and build a foundation, because nobody goes to their deathbed and says, oh, I should have spent another day in the office. What do people say? Why not do something more? Why not give myself that experience? That gap year is a really good time to do it. So I said, this is a perfect opportunity. So off I go to Israel. And it wasn't the sights, It wasn't the going to the kotel and finding out. All that was very meaningful and important for me. What changed my life was meeting Israeli peers. They looked like me, they dressed like me, they heard the same music, they played the same sports, but the Shabbat conversation around the table was very different. We obsessed about going to university, which tertiary institute of education we're going to. What were they obsessing about? Your average 17, 18-year-old Israeli. Besides Peru, what else are they obsessing about?
Going to the army.
Or national service, right? Where are we going to give back to our country? Now, if I was addressing an American audience, everyone would be familiar with the JFK soundbite. Of not what you could do, what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. That's what JFK said back in '61. They are obsessed, these kids, who externally look just like me, obsessed about service, about giving back. These are not the values we grew up on. How many people sitting in this room think when they're 18 years old, they're going to stop their lives for 2 years and do community service and go work with some Aboriginals or go and serve in the Australian military, or just stop their lives and go and do something else for other people? Anyone think having these thoughts right now in their minds? Probably not. I don't want to put you on the spot, because I didn't either when I was your age, right? Because they're not the values we're raised on. We're raised on Lo'olam tikach, always take, right? But the idea of kids my age stopping their lives for 3 years to give back, it blew me away. It just literally blew me away. 2 reasons. A, like many of you, and I asked a question, I see a lot of hands are going to go up now. How many people in this room have direct family members they know about who were killed in the Shoah? In this room, right? This is Australia, right? It's a lot outside. There's also the highest amount of Holocaust survivors came to Australia. But why were they killed? Because Israel came around 10 years too late. If it would have been Israel in 1938, 1 out of 3 Jews would not have been murdered. But it came in 1948, and they were murdered, right? That's one. How many of you guys go to Zionist youth movements? Right? Could be B'nai, could be HaShomer, could be Habonim, whatever it is. A few of you, right? In my day, we all went. We didn't say, do you go to one? It's like, which one do you go to? So I grew up in a Zionist youth movement. I also grew up, my mother's entire family had been murdered in the Shoah, except for her parents. So the only 2 who survived. And that puts a shadow over you, because they were Jews at the wrong time, the wrong place in history. Also, I went to a Jewish day school, very much like yours. And I learned about Jewish history. And I knew, at the age of 18, 17, that the future of the Jewish people would play out in Israel. And I wanted to be part of that. So it was no surprise to anyone when I decided after my gap year, I'm going to stay in Israel. And I did stay. I became what's called a Chayal Boded, a lone soldier. I volunteered for a combat unit in the army called Givati. It's like an infantry marine unit. And I went into that unit and served for 3 years. I adopted a kibbutz, had 0 family in Israel. I learned 3 important lessons about the army that's going to take me to the 7th of October last year. What are the 3 important lessons you learn in basic training? Did you guys all seen the film Beneath the Helmet? Is that on their curriculum or not?
Yes.
Apparently, you're judging by the blank stares. Okay. What's basic training to in the army? It takes a bunch of selfish, self-centered teenagers, in other words, teenagers, and it makes it a cohesive fighting force. That's what basic training does in the army. What are the 3 big lessons I learned? A, we're all capable of a lot more than we think we are. If someone would have told me that I would be marching for 90 kilometers, carrying half my body weight and people on stretchers in 14 hours without stopping, I would have laughed. I did it. That's how I finished basic training. So we're all capable of a lot more than we think we are. If someone would have told me that your friends aren't just the people that share the limo with you in the good times, but they also carry your umbrella when the car's broken down and it's raining. In Australia, that's called mateship. True friends, right? People you would literally take a bullet for and they would take a bullet for you. That's the second important lesson I learned, about not having fair weather friends, real friends. And lastly, but most importantly, the Mishahu lesson. What does Mishahu mean in Hebrew? Literally. Mishahu just means someone, right? So in basic training, you run around like a maniac all the time. You're always running, right? There's always a point in basic training where they say to you, okay, you can all go rest in the tent for a minute. So we all go to the tent, we collapse in the tent, and the sergeant will stand outside me and instead of Mishahu B'chutz, I need someone to come out. It wasn't my aftershave, they're going somewhere else, we know that. What?
There's the teaching non-Jewish kids what it is to be a Jewish child.
Love it. By the way, that's what they did in New Zealand. You remember that last year when someone sprayed painted swastikas all over the 17-year-old men? They called the kids, and rather than put them in juvenile prison, they invited the Jewish community to see what Judaism is.
Yes,
Brilliant.
it's
The best. Okay, so the sergeant was outside, he said, Misha, before I need someone to go outside. And what's the normal teenage reaction? No, Misha, someone go out. He said, cool them up, everyone out, we'll all around for half an hour. Then we'll go back to the tent center, and I need someone to volunteer. When you find out your basic trainings about, when you say, I'll be the Mishahu, I'll do the right thing, and let my mates rest. Right? That's the Mishahu lesson. Now I'm going to fast forward to this. This was me last week, right? This is just on the border of Gaza last week. I'm wearing about 30 kilos of equipment. It's a Kevlar helmet over here. This is a flak jacket. It's a webbing. It's a vest, but inside it are ceramic plates, which are bulletproof. A lot of medical equipment, magazines, grenade, all that kind of stuff. And here's the crazy thing. I don't look like it, right? But I'm 55 years old. 55 years old. The last time I served in the Army Reserves was when I was 40. That's 15 years ago, right? When I was 40, it was also the first time I was in Australia. It was 2006. I came for the same ZFA conference that I'm speaking at on Sunday. The day I landed in Melbourne, after obsessing about flying into Australia, you know, beaches, koalas, kangaroos, all that stuff, my brother called me at the airport in 2006 and said, mate, you've got to come back, there's a war, you just got an emergency call up. I'm like, you're joking, because he's a bit of a joker. It's kind of a long flight. And it wasn't, it was the Second Lebanon War. So I called up from the airport to the organisers of the conference, said, I can't stay, we've just been called up, I have to go back. It happened to be that the plane was the next day, so I did get out, gave one speech at the conference, and I went back the next day. Do you know who was on that plane going back to Israel? All these Israelis were backpacking around Australia. One poor bastard was on his honeymoon. They just stopped what they were doing, got on that plane, and flew back. Do you know why? I just told you the answer why. Because you can't say Mishu Acher. If everyone says let someone else do it, then nothing gets done. Do you know why we have a state of Israel? Because of teenagers. Right? Jews fled from Russia from the pogroms. Most of them went to Lower East Side. Most of them went to the East End of London. But the teenagers came and one Hebrew word at a time revived a dead language. One tree at a time revived a dead country. And one defense at a time revived Jewish pride and Jewish honor. That's why we have a country. Do you know why we still have a country? Because of teenagers. When they finish high school at 18, they don't say, what's good for me? They say, what's good for our country, what's good for our people. And they stop their lives for 3 years and go into the army. That is why I went back. I didn't even think twice. Fast forward now 15 years afterwards. I'm sitting in my flat in Modi'in in Israel on that Shabbat, the 7th of October. The sirens go. Simchat Torah, Shabbat morning, sirens are going. Oh, it's a few missiles from Gaza. Then they kept on going. So I went next door to my Chinoni neighbors and listened in, and all the numbers started pouring in. The amount of people being killed, the amount of people being kidnapped, and the numbers just kept growing and growing and growing. Now, do you guys remember where you were when you started hearing the news of what happened last year? And you will remember for the rest of your lives. It's a defining moment in Jewish history, right? As we all know, the largest amount of Jews were slaughtered since the Shoah. It happened in your lifetime. It's not an ancient history lesson. How did you feel when you heard the news? What were your emotions? Shock. Helpless, scared. All these emotions. Anyone who loves this will wash over them. Mine was the same, but also anger as well. How could this have happened? We're not the Jews of the Shoah. We have an army. What happened? Where was the army? How did this happen? How did intelligence F up so much? What's going on here? Anger, frustration, fear. When all those emotions subsided, what was the next thought that came to my mind? What can I do? I'm a trained combat medic. That's what I did in the army for many, many years. But I hadn't been done for 15 years. But every Israeli, when they're coming in, they keep a uniform in the basement, just in case something happens. So I put on my uniform, and amazingly, it still fit after 15 years. I put it on, and I heard a rumor, this is the way things work in Israel. I heard a rumor that somewhere in the Negev, there was a base where they were looking for medical combat personnel, doctors, paramedics, combat medics. Based on a rumor, I went down, I drove for 3 hours down, got to the base. What was the first thing the guard asked me at the base? Where are your papers? I've been called up, it's an emergency. I don't have anything. So they said, no. Now, the difference between Australia and Israel is in Israel, no doesn't mean no. What does no mean? Start negotiating. Anyway, it's kind of long story short. A few minutes later, I was inside the base. And I spent the next 2 hours going to different units. I didn't belong to any unit, right? Trying to sell myself. Hi, I'm a combat medic, I've got all this experience, I've worked as a tour guide, I'm still fit, I worked in Mada, blah, 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 been to Gaza, been to Lebanon. And after only 2 hours, I've got a unit to say, we'll take you. Even though I was way aged out, because you've got knowledge and you're enthusiastic and you're fit, we'll take you. And then the big battle began, which is called the Israeli bureaucracies. That took another 3 days to convince the army to actually take me, but we'll cut all this short. And 4 days later, I found myself on the border of Gaza, waiting with my particular unit. Now, what does my unit do? In Hebrew, it's called the Palmar, which is the Plugat Lechima Mechavit Refuit, which is a hell of a mouthful, which means a combat medical extraction unit. To any soldiers that are wounded in Gaza, we're the ones that go in with helicopters, with armored vehicles, with armored ambulances, and we extract them and save their lives. Now, here's the crazy thing. In the news, you hear about Israeli soldiers who are killed. And some of these soldiers are literally a year older than you, right? Israeli kids, boys, who were killed, and the number, alarmingly, is shot since the land invasion began, up to 332 as of this morning. What you don't hear about are the thousands upon thousands who are wounded. Thousands, right now it's gone up to like 4,000 wounded soldiers, right? Why don't we hear about them? Because they don't die. And why don't they die? Because my unit and units like mine have broken the golden hour. What does that mean? That from the moment they're shot or wounded or injured in an explosion, till they get to an OR in a hospital, 57 minutes, right? There's no other army in the world that can get them out and save their lives that quickly. And people come from all over the world to study us, from the American army, from NATO, from the British army, and I'm the token English speaker, I take them around. So how do we do it? First of all, let me just show you a clip, right? If the soldier's seriously wounded, what's the first thing that we do? We have to call in the Tesha, that's the emergency helicopter evacuation unit. And they are basically commandos, or there's a doctor and a paramedic on the helicopter. It's a Black Hawk helicopter. They come in to Gaza, wherever we need them. They're on the ground for 20 seconds. You're about to see a clip that actually took a real clip, not a made-for-TV movie clip. On the ground for 20 seconds. They evacuate the seriously wounded soldier who we've already treated, and they're off to the hospital already. I'm going to show you a clip right now. But first of all, let me tell you something very unusual, very interesting. Israel's called a startup nation. Have you heard that term before? Startup nation? The medical innovation, technology, all these things that we do. It's all come together right now in this war. From the moment someone gets shot or wounded, a soldier, from that moment the treatment starts, all the way till they get to the hospital, right? So the person, the medic who's treating them, the inbuilt medic, who's right with them in the battlefront, like he'll stop immediate bleeding or arterial bleeding. And there's another medic recording everything on a digital pad. That information is coming to us as we're going in, so we know where the treatment is. The same information is being beamed up to the helicopter as they're flying in. And the same information is going to the hospital where the soldier's going to end up. It's a live feed, live time, they're getting all this information, right? And we don't do plasma substitutes, we use real blood in incredible conditions in the middle of combat. How do we, if they've got internal bleeding, how do we see it? We have mobile ultrasound units in the middle of combat where we can actually scan and see where we need to treat them. We can go in and to their throat with electric cameras in the middle of combat, using all this very, very high tech. And that's what saves them. They're being treated the whole time, and the speed of the evacuation. What is the first question soldiers ask when we come to evacuate them? Always the same thing. And when I say soldiers, I'm going to show some of these people soon, right? They're your age, some of these guys. What's the first question they ask when we come to evacuate them? No matter what their wound is, what's their first question? Take a guess.
How bad is it?
You would think. That's human nature. How bad is it? What's happening? I'm going to be okay. But no, what's the first question they actually ask?
When can I get back? That's
exactly it. When I go back. Some of them are just not going back, right? We took a guy 2 weeks ago with 60% second and third degree burns. That was his first question. As soon as all the morphine and ketamine kicked in, it's like, when can I go back? He's not going back. But they want to go back because that's what mateship is. They want to go back to their friends, right? Their first question is not about themselves, but when can I go back? The clip I'm going to show you now is, this is the guy who had, let's go to the movies 1 second. Otherwise, I'm going to show you this interesting clip here. This is the only one in the whole army. This has been 1990, this has been 2024 on the same beach, right? Slightly thinner over there. That's 34 years later, the same beach in Gaza, right? I don't think any other soldier in the Aliyah has got a picture of a 19-year-old over here, the 55-year-old over there, on the same beach in Gaza, with a 34-year gap in the middle. Now, we have a few minutes left. I wanted to ask if any of you guys have any questions for me. So I can answer like first person, about service or just any general questions you guys have. Yeah.
You said you were a lone soldier. What was the most difficult part of being a lone soldier?
Being a lone soldier, that's the difficult part. So yeah, I was a Chalbod there, there's also Chalot Bodadot as well. And I also had, we're all brothers and sisters in Israel, but I had no family there. It's like the big life cycle events when you finish like the basic training, you get your like purple beret, your family's not there. All the Israeli kids go home to their parents for Shabbat, and they've got family that served in the army, and they'll help them out. You have to see your adopted family like kibbutz. So I think it's missing the family. I think it's a big thing. Plus the language. I speak Hebrew despite going to day school. I speak Hebrew because I got hammered into me in the army. So everything's always in your second language, and missing your family, without a doubt. So you've got to be very motivated to do it. But the rewards are tremendous. I have zero regrets. Yeah.
A little weird question, but do you have kids?
I do, yeah.
Would you let your kids find Aliyah on your doorstep?
Yeah, well, first of all, I've got 4 kids. I know about. And where's that come from? Basically, that's what every Israeli parent thinks. As soon as a kid is born, as soon as you do that bridge or pretend, they think, oh my God, I hope there's peace in it. 18 years, they don't need to put a helmet on. It's terrible. They're not army age yet. My brother has a kid in Gaza right now, my nephew Shaled. I came here for 2 weeks. I gave him my bulletproof helmet because his unit didn't give him proper helmets. And he's absolutely terrified right now, my brother, but he's proud at the same time. So it's very mixed emotions. On the one hand, we're glad that we Jews can defend ourselves. We see what happens when we can't, right? You rely on the host nations, the result is a Shoah. On the other hand, as a parent, it's like the worst feelings, especially if you've been through it yourself and you know exactly what a kid's going through. So yes, mixed emotions is the answer. Pride, but also extreme worry as well. Yeah. Yep, good question.
When you first joined the army, did you go straight into the medical unit?
So basically, no, because my Hebrew was crap, because I went to day school, so I actually failed the Hebrew test going to the army. They said, oh, we'll call you for all power. At the time of the murder, it was only 8 months later, I spoke Hebrew. So I wanted to be a medic right away in basic training, but my Hebrew was just rubbish. So I'm a bit stubborn, in case you didn't realise it, the whole story getting back to the army. So after I was a sergeant, I became a medic, simply because it's life knowledge. A lot of courses you do in the army, like sharpshooting or stuff like that, are just army courses. But to be a paramedic is knowledge for life. As a parent, as a human being, gives you self-confidence, and you also have a profession. As soon as I finished, I was working with Gaza. So I was focused on it, and even though they said no, no is not no. So eventually I got into it because I was driven. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
If somebody's been hurt too severely, what do you do? It's like the same procedure.
Well, what do you mean by too severely?
Like if you know they've got like a little to no chance of surviving.
Yeah, well, everything we can. The helicopters get called in straight away. They don't make it. Most people do because of the continuous treatment. And sometimes we just get a bit too late. Like a couple of months into the war, we were racing towards this tank guy. He was severely wounded, and he was fading as we were getting to him. Like they were bringing him towards us. He died just before he got to us. When we got to him, only then we found out he was a brother-in-law of our officer. So we just had to bring back the body back with his brother-in-law. So we try to do everything we can. Even Idan Ahmedi, most people have given up on him. The guy, it's like he wasn't breathing and he was unconscious. But somehow we just managed to pull him back from the brink. So we never give up unless there's zero life service. Never give up, kids. And what else? Yeah, over here, yeah.
Did you plan on going back to Israel and so
I got back to the army in 2 weeks. I got a 2-week break and came out to lecture in Australia, and the FA conference, and all the day schools in Sydney and Melbourne. And on September the 6th, I'm reporting back to duty in my unit. Yeah. We had 2 weeks off, most people were just chilling and sleeping at home. I decided to come out and just spread some of the light from Zion, what's going on. So yes, I'm definitely going back. I'm going from Sydney back to Gaza. What a contrast. Yeah.
How do you maintain your composure when you're faced with all these sorts of cases?
You've got to compartmentalize. You have to, because if you don't, it's going to drive you crazy. But our unit has 2 psychologists who work in the unit. We have a compulsory debrief once a week, or whenever we want to, we go and debrief, because we've seen stuff that's just crazy. You've got to compartmentalize. You've got to put your emotions on one side, because you're literally trying to save people's lives, and every second counts. So that's the answer. Not everyone can do it. We were doing our medics course, there's a part where you have to inject yourself onto the medic's wounded. So I remember the scene very well. We'd already 2 months into the course, and they said, okay, pick up the needle and inject yourself in the leg. So one guy picks up the needle, looks at his leg, looks at the needle, puts the needle on the desk, and says, you know what, this course isn't for me, he just walked out. So you've got to be a certain mindset. You've got to be able to understand that what you're doing is vitally important, time is important. You don't have time for your own emotions. Afterwards, go and speak to psychologists, because we have 2 of them, and believe me, these guys are working 24/7. And also, the wounded soldiers aren't always physically wounded. Some of them get PTSD in the middle of battle, and you have to extract them from the battle as well. So the answer is compartmentalize. Right, any other questions? 1 minute left.
I just want more again.
What? Yeah.
What if the wounded soldier is still too close to like the conflict area, and so you're not quite able to get to them? You still.
So generally speaking, we got to go in. They bring them to us. If it's like not stable, we're not all medical personnel. We also have fighters, and then we go in and I've tended people under fire. I have 55 stitches in my face from the Second Lebanon War when I was hit by a ricochet of an RPG exploding next to me whilst I was tending a wounded patient. Right, it happens, right? So we have combat soldiers, men and women, who put a circumference around us whilst they're treating the wounded. So you've got to do it. Ideally, we'd like to bring them a bit closer to us. Sometimes it's just not possible. Yeah.
On behalf of NASCO, I just want to thank you for your time and coming to speak to us today. It's been really engaging. Thank you.